this special day I will talk again about the uh, the particularities of uh, um, the things I had said the last time. There were basically three parts of appearance, which was idea, um, continuity, and uh, particularity. And this time I will elaborate all of them. And again, this Hegelian play will happen, in which I make out of the three of them nine how do you call it, concepts. And yes, okay, to go to do it actually. um, of course we had the last time particularity, and what are the particularities of our reality, of our appearances? Um, I found that one could distinguish three parts. The first part would be attribute, or yes, attribute. The second part would be the relationship between attributes, and the third thing would be the object. And well, now one could ask, how can one do that? In which way does can one deduce that? Well, I thought followingly. The first thing is, what is particular, or what if one focuses on something, on what would one focus? And it's at its most elementary either an object or an attribute of an object, or even the relationship between attributes. And basically on nothing else you can particularly focus. Of course, this object could be an idea, or this object could be anything else from the other concepts I will introduce. But the category of the idea is an object. In that sense, it's again included in this three particular concepts. And well, how they are linked together might be the next question. Attribute is connected to the relationship between attributes, in the sense that if there were a pure attribute, you wouldn't see anything like pictures, for example. Then there would be just a set of attributes which would have no which wouldn't be embedded in different attributes. For example, there are dimensions, and every object has attributes in dimensions. This means that, for example, a cube has 3 dimensions, and these 3 dimensions are in a way an attribute of the cube itself. Of course, one could say also that the cube is just in those 3 dimensions we experience. But we could possibly see the cube also as a 2-dimensional entity. The point is basically that everything has not only pure attributes like black, green, which are um, which are just pure attributes, but it has also a relationship. Every attribute has a relationship to another attribute. And if one tries to make sense of the world, and if one tries to simplify and to simplify the world and to represent the world, one just can't go around and say that, of course, everything are just attributes and their relationship with one another. It would be, to a certain extent, too different of a task to make sense of the world um, on this basic conception. Wrong word, but I think you get it. Because it would be too much time consuming to think like that. Therefore, there are objects. And how do one create objects? One puts a set of attributes which has a certain kind of relationship to one another into one representation of that all. And therefore, thinking and dealing with the world will be easier because one has created objects. Of course, one might say that this is a very subjective way of thinking, but I think most of the time we do nothing else than that. And well, one could ask, okay, I get it, you have introduced some concepts which are not quite invented by me, but I quite like to define those concepts in this way. But what uses it? Well, you could use it in several ways. Of course, for example, you want to define a book. It's easy. Some would say, okay, that's trivial and just go to Wikipedia and look it up. But we actually know what a book is. However, it is something different to define it in a way that a book is always a book. And also there will be cases in which a book isn't quite that what we would understand as a book. Let's say, for example, that there exists a species that, I don't know, instead of needing for example, they don't have hands and they tend to look at a book, create books that you just add like a paper and you say forward and the next page will be the pages will change then. In this case, one could say both. This is a book and this isn't a book. It's about the definition. But if one understands that we define things towards making the world easier, better understandable, and also to make better conclusions, and therefore we define things and create objects. And if you know that, then perhaps one should also know how one exactly creates objects. And of course, here I again can do the same trick I used to do in the videos before. You can say that first, without attributes there wouldn't be a relationship between attributes, which is quite trivial, but without the relationships of attributes, attributes would just be like I guess you all know what a computer code is, a machine code, which not a machine, a binary code. In a way, it would be similar like a binary code, to the extent that one would just find information in one object, or not even in one object in reality, in the world, without any sense in it, because all is just stuck as pure information, pure coding, because if information is given without any meaning, without any relationship to each other, it would just be nothing. It would just be a code, but you wouldn't get anything. Therefore, even attributes in a way need their relationship to one another to be truly attributes. And of course, one could make the last move that without objects one wouldn't even guess the concept of an attribute, because the concept of an attribute is an object, but the attribute itself is never an object. Well, that's perhaps a bit tricky, but that's actually not tricky, but it's a well, perhaps funny detail more. So to repeat, we got this time the attribute, the relationship between attributes and the object. And next time we will talk about continuity as concept. I hope you enjoy it, and actually I guess quite few people watch those videos, because I don't know, I think this is not quite interesting for most people. It's just something I think is useful, but yes, nothing more than that. Also, perhaps I should again point out that this because all of those things I described are basically parts of particularity, and of course one should understand that the concepts don't exclude one another. You will find one concept in another concept in a way. Let's say it's the concept of the object. Every idea is in a certain sense also an object. But the object as an object is perhaps again more like an idea. And even the object as concept is in a certain way an object, because the object has attributes. And well, to point that out is perhaps like, I don't know, it's perhaps just well, not quite useful, but it's interesting to think about it. Basically, this is the point.